You've been misled about money from the moment you could count it. Not by accident, not by ignorance, but because someone needed you tame. They told you money is neutral. They told you money is just a way to pay bills, stack savings, maybe retire quietly if you behave. They told you to earn it, budget it, protect it, never risk it, never question it. And that is exactly why you have never been a threat. Because here is the truth almost no one dares to say out loud. Money is not neutral. Money is not safe. Money is not innocent. Money is a force. In the hands of the powerful, it cuts, reshapes, and dominates the world you live in, while you clutch it like a fragile little prize and hope it will keep you safe. Machiavelli warned that the world does not move for good intentions or honest effort. It moves for power. In the modern age, the purest, coldest form of power is money, not because of what it buys, but because of what it bends. Decisions, loyalties, narratives, entire systems. The people you call elite don't worship money. They wield it. They don't hoard it. They deploy it. They don't fear losing it. They fear losing control. While you are told to be responsible and play it safe, they use money like a blade forged in fire, cutting through resistance, carving out advantage, enforcing their will without ever raising their voice. Look at your own life for a moment. How many choices have you made out of financial fear? How many dreams have you postponed, downsized, or buried because the numbers on a screen told you to stay small? That's not freedom. That's quiet obedience. And it is engineered. You were trained to see money as a shield. They learned early that money is a sword. They buy time while you sell yours. They buy influence while you buy distractions. They use every transaction as a move in a larger game you were never taught existed. This is not a motivational speech. This is an initiation, a crack in the story you were raised inside. In the next moments, you're going to learn how to stop treating money like a comfort blanket and start seeing it as a Machiavellian instrument of power, a force you can sharpen, direct, and weaponize. Not emotionally, not morally, strategically. Once you grasp that, you stop being another obedient piece on someone else's board, and you start becoming the player who moves the pieces, designs the board, and decides how the game is played. But understand this: once you see money this way, you cannot unsee it. You will notice the strings behind every headline, every contract, every opportunity. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is the doorway. Step through it, and we begin. The first principle is simple, brutal, and inescapable. Money operates on the nervous system. You were taught to believe it's about numbers, accounting, interest rates, spreadsheets, but the people who truly rule your world know better. Money is not math, it's emotion. It is fear, desire, envy, status, survival, all wrapped into a symbol you will sell your time, your energy, and sometimes your soul to protect. Machiavelli understood that men are moved by necessity, not reason, and nothing creates a sense of necessity faster than the threat of financial loss. Most people are terrified of losing money, desperate to gain a little more, ashamed when they fail with it, and guilty when they succeed. They feel everything, and that emotional noise makes them predictable. Predictable people are easy to control. Employers dangle salaries to keep you obedient. Banks sell you debt as freedom. Governments weaponize inflation and taxation to steer entire populations without a single soldier in the street. You think you are making independent choices, but your decisions are quietly being guided by your fear of not having enough, your hunger to appear successful, your desperation to feel secure. That is the battlefield. The numbers are just camouflage. So if you want to weaponize money, the first war you fight is not out there, it's in here. You must become emotionally silent around money. Not indifferent, not careless, silent. No panic when it drops, no euphoria when it spikes, no shame, no pride, no flinch. Because when you stop broadcasting fear and craving every time money moves, you stop leaking power, you become unreadable. And in a world where everyone is emotionally naked around money, the unreadable man is the one who quietly takes control of the game. Now we move to the second principle. Wealth is never the destination. Leverage is. The average man spends his entire life chasing money like a dog chasing cars, panting, exhausted, confused about why he never gets anywhere that actually matters. But the people who quietly bend this world don't chase at all. They position. Think of a king on a battlefield. He doesn't swing a sword. He doesn't charge into the chaos. He doesn't prove his courage in the mud. Yet every soldier moves for him. Every resource flows to him. Every victory is credited to his name. Why? Position. He sits above the noise, above the fear, above the desperation. That's what weaponized money is truly used for, not to buy random things, but to buy where you stand in the game. The powerful don't ask, "How do I earn more?" They ask, "How do I sit where other people's time, effort, and decisions automatically benefit me?" They design gravity. They create structures, businesses, systems, assets where value flows toward them without them having to sprint for every dollar. While the herd chases scraps, the predator builds magnets. The more he sits still, the more the world moves around him. This is Machiavellian positioning. You don't fight harder inside the system. You use money to place yourself above it, where your smallest move has more impact than their lifetime of struggle. There is a third layer to this game, one so subtle most people never even notice it. Money is not the strongest weapon. The story around money is. The elites don't just control money, they control what money means. They decide what looks successful, what sounds respectable, what feels safe, and the masses obediently reshape their lives to fit that script. Machiavelli understood that men are ruled more by appearances than realities, and in the modern world, appearances are engineered through narrative. A brand isn't just a company, it's a story people want to belong to. A luxury item isn't just an object, it's a symbol of status people are willing to bleed for. A currency isn't just paper, it's trust printed in ink. When you weaponize money, you're not just stacking numbers, you're shaping perception. You make your money mean something in the minds of others. Once people believe your money represents power, competence, inevitability, they start treating you differently. Doors open before you knock, obstacles melt before you push. Resistance fades before you confront it. Money becomes influence, influence becomes power, and power, when combined with the right story, starts to feel inevitable. Now, here's where the real split happens. The divide between people who will forever be controlled by money and those who learn to control through money. Give a weak man money and he becomes weaker. Give a strong man money and he becomes dangerous. Most people think getting rich will fix them, heal them, make them confident. It doesn't. It simply magnifies what was already there. The fragile man buys comfort so he doesn't have to grow, buys validation so he doesn't have to respect himself, buys distractions so he doesn't have to face his reality. He spends to feel powerful because he has none inside. The strong man does the opposite. He buys leverage, he buys time, he buys access, he buys silence. One uses money to escape his life. The other uses money to sharpen his life. That is the divergence. Two identities, two destinies. Machiavelli warned that men are enslaved by what they love, and the herd has been trained to love what money represents: comfort, status, identity, approval. These are the chains. A man who worships comfort cannot wield power. A man who craves applause cannot control outcomes. A man who builds his identity on money becomes a slave to how others see him. To weaponize money, you must become colder than that. You must step outside the emotional storm the crowd lives in and become unreachable, someone who cannot be bought with cheap praise, cannot be steered by fear of loss, cannot be tempted by shiny illusions. Because the moment money stops moving your emotions, you begin to move money with intent. That is the first real metamorphosis, shifting from the one who is shaped by money to the one who shapes reality with it. Now we carve deeper, because if you still think money is about dollars, you're already losing. Money is not about units, it's about power flow. Machiavelli understood that power doesn't move randomly. It follows structure, hierarchy, position. The rich don't spend money the way you do. They don't buy objects, they buy control points. A predator doesn't buy land because he likes the view. He buys it because everyone who wants to stand there has to go through him. He doesn't buy a business just for profit. He buys a system other people depend on. He doesn't buy access for prestige. He buys influence over people who influence the world. Meanwhile, the average man buys shoes, entertainment, distractions, things that decay, things that sedate him. He burns his money to feel good for a moment. The predator deploys his to command reality for decades. And at the core of all of this is the one currency more valuable than money itself: time. The herd trades time for money and wastes what little time they have left. The elite trade money for time and guard that time like a fortress. Because once money stops being something you earn and becomes something you direct, your time becomes lethal. Every hour you free, every task you delegate, every layer of chaos you remove from your life adds distance between you and the struggling masses. Weaponized money buys time, and time, used with cold intention, buys dominance. There is a darker, more hidden level to all of this. A level where money stops looking like numbers and starts looking like a spell. The world is not built on truth, it is built on belief, and belief is controlled through narrative. Machiavelli understood that men judge more by what they see and hear than by what is real. And in the modern age, that means the people who rule you don't just manage money, they manage the stories wrapped around it. Why do people trust a logo more than a stranger? Narrative. Why do they chase brands, labels, luxury symbols that cost a fortune but do nothing practical? Narrative. Why does one currency feel safe and another feel risky, even when both are just paper or digital code? Narrative. The rich don't waste energy trying to convince the world logically. They shape the perception of value, and the world falls in line. Money, in their hands, becomes narrative in physical form, a story you can spend. When you finally understand this, you stop trying to win just by accumulating more and start asking a colder question. What does my money make people believe about me? Because once your presence signals power, inevitability, and competence in the minds of others, your money multiplies faster, your influence stretches further, and your silence speaks louder than their noise. Weaponizing money at scale is not about stacking cash. It's about shaping the lens through which the world sees that cash and sees you. Most people see spending money as losing money, and that's exactly why they never gain power from it, because they treat every dollar like a fragile keepsake instead of a weapon to be deployed. To weaponize money, you have to see it the way a strategist sees soldiers. not as something to hide in barracks, but as something to send into battle. Machiavelli understood that power demands sacrifice, and in the modern world, your sacrifice is financial. Money spent on comfort weakens you. Money spent on capability hardens you. Money spent on status traps you in performance. Money spent on position frees you from dependence. Every dollar you deploy either expands your control or props up your insecurity. The herd spends to feel better today. The predator sacrifices today to own tomorrow. When you start viewing each bit of money as a unit of force, not an emotional safety blanket, you stop asking, "How do I keep this?" and start asking, "Where can I send this to come back with more power?" From that moment on, your bank account stops being a nest and becomes an army. Fear is the hidden market every empire trades in the world, and money is the amplifier that turns that fear into a leash around the neck of anyone who doesn't understand this game. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And in the modern world, that fear is rarely about swords or prisons. It is about losing money, losing status, losing access. When someone fears losing their job, they obey. When someone fears losing their reputation, they conform. When someone fears losing their savings, their lifestyle, their fragile sense of security, they become predictable. And predictable people are the easiest to control. This is why every powerful institution on earth, governments, corporations, financial systems, ties your survival to money. They don't need to threaten you directly. They just need you to feel that your existence depends on a paycheck, a number, a line of credit, a score. Weaponized money doesn't shout, it whispers, "Careful, you might lose everything." That whisper bends decisions, kills courage, and keeps most people locked in small, safe, obedient lives. But fear is only half of the equation. The other half is desire, the bait that keeps you chasing the very systems that trap you. Desire for status, for belonging, for recognition, for the illusion of success that looks good on a screen. Ads, influencers, brands, media, none of them need to tell you the full truth. They just need to trigger the right craving. You think you are choosing, but your choices are being framed. Machiavelli understood that men are guided more by their passions than by reason, and the elite understand this perfectly. They don't compete for your logic, they compete for space inside your imagination. They use money to buy narrative control, control over what looks winning and what looks losing, what looks risky and what looks safe, who looks powerful and who looks pathetic. Once they control the story, they don't need to push you. You push yourself. You work longer, spend harder, submit quicker, all to avoid the fear they've magnified and chase the desires they've scripted. To weaponize money the way they do, you must stop being the one who reacts to fear and desire and start becoming the one who structures them. Instead of asking, "What am I afraid of losing?" you begin to ask, "What do they fear losing if they cross me?" Instead of, "What do I want from them?" you ask, "What do they secretly want from me that I can control?" This is Machiavellian money, not just numbers, but psychological pressure engineered by where you place your resources. At this level, money is no longer about buying things, it's about buying leverage over human behavior. Here's what almost no one realizes until it's too late. Money doesn't just move people, it builds the environment people are trapped inside. You don't just live in a country, a company, a culture. You live inside systems funded, fueled, and enforced by money. Machiavelli understood that the prince who controls the conditions never needs to control every person directly, and in the modern world, those conditions are economic. When you weaponize money, You stop thinking in terms of isolated wins and start thinking in terms of structures, ecosystems, where others must come to you, rely on you, and fear losing access to what you control. A subscription they can't cancel without pain. A platform they can't grow without. A relationship, opportunity, or gateway they can't replace. That is when money stops behaving like currency and starts behaving like gravity. It pulls people into your orbit, bends their decisions toward your favor, shapes their incentives, even when you're not in the room. They don't obey you because you shout. They obey you because the cost of losing you is too high. Dependence is the ultimate weapon. A man who is dependent on you will defend you even when you quietly harm his interests. He will justify your moves to protect his access. He will betray his own standards before he risks losing your support. This is not friendship. This is architecture. And the architects of power understand. The real game is not earning more money inside someone else's system. It's using your money to build the system other people cannot afford to leave. Here's the part the herd almost never sees. The most dangerous money in the world is the money you never see. Machiavelli knew that the prince who shows all his power invites rebellion, but the prince who hides his true strength breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty is terror. The weak flaunt their success, broadcasting every win, every purchase, every temporary spike in status, hoping someone will validate them. The powerful do the opposite. They hide, they move in silence, they let rumors do the work. When no one can measure your resources, they can't predict your moves. And when they can't predict your moves, they can't defend against you. That's when money stops being a number and becomes an atmosphere, an invisible pressure people can feel but can't explain. Hidden wealth creates mystery. Mystery creates speculation. Speculation creates both fear and respect. People start to fill in the blanks with their own insecurities. If he's this calm, he must be safe. If he's this quiet, he must know something. If he doesn't need to prove anything, he must be beyond my level. You don't tell them you're powerful. They convince themselves you are. Weaponized money at this stage is not about what you show, but what you withhold. You stop posting proof and start cultivating doubt. You stop explaining your decisions and let people wonder what you're planning. You say less in negotiations and watch others talk themselves into weaker positions. Machiavelli would tell you, men judge more with their eyes than with their minds, and if you control what they can't see, you control how they feel. Loud power is brittle. It depends on applause. It depends on attention. It depends on the crowd still caring tomorrow. Quiet power doesn't depend on anything. It sits like gravity, unspoken, steady, inescapable. The loud man flexes his money to feel strong. The silent man doesn't need to feel strong. He knows he can move lives with a decision no one saw coming. That is what your money must become, not fireworks, but a shadow in their peripheral vision. Not a parade, but a presence. When you no longer need to prove you have power, you begin to experience the purest form of it, the kind that bends behavior without a single explicit command. Once your money stops being a spectacle and becomes a shadow, you're ready for the next evolution, structural power. Machiavelli understood that real control comes not from isolated acts, but from the structure of the world around you. And in our age, that structure is financial. Every environment people depend on: jobs, platforms, supply chains, social hierarchies, is built out of money like steel beams. The powerful don't just make plays, they build frameworks where their smallest movement sends shockwaves through other people's lives. A policy change, a price adjustment, a contract shift, a quiet decision in a boardroom, and suddenly thousands adjust their plans, their words, their loyalties to fit the new shape of your will. They start pre-editing themselves around you, calculating how you might react before they speak, trimming their ambitions to avoid crossing invisible lines. That's not charisma. That's architecture. And to maintain that kind of power, you must learn the second great weapon of the strategist: withholding. Most people talk to relieve pressure. They reveal their plans, their fears, their insecurities, because silence makes them uncomfortable. You must invert that instinct. A man who weaponizes money becomes a man of controlled words and hidden information. You say less than you know, reveal less than you own, promise less than you can deliver. Withholding creates mystique. Mystique creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates caution, and caution turns into respect. Respect, repeated over time, hardens into hierarchy, an unspoken understanding that your time, your approval, your resources sit above theirs. Soon, people begin granting you permissions you never asked for, bending rules on your behalf, excusing behavior in you they would condemn in others. Not because you demanded it, but because the architecture of power around your money made it feel natural. That is structural dominance, when the very system people live inside quietly teaches them to move around you, protect you, and prioritize you without you ever needing to raise your voice. There is a stage beyond structure where your money becomes something far more dangerous than a balance. It becomes a living system that moves without you. Machiavelli understood that the wisest ruler is the one whose influence continues even when he is absent, and in our age that means building money that self-replicates. Most people work for money. The powerful make money work through other people's fears, desires, and routines. They plant it in assets, systems, and narratives that grow while they sleep, a product that others keep selling, a platform others keep building on, a reputation others keep spreading for free. Every dollar becomes a seed. Every seed becomes a root. Every root becomes a grip on some part of the environment other people live in. This is why the elite obsess over leverage, not effort. When someone buys from you, your story spreads. When someone invests in you, your reach extends. When someone depends on your system, your control compounds. And here's the brutal truth. Most will never reach this level because they can't win the war inside their own head. Weaponizing money at this stage demands a discipline that feels almost inhuman, an ability to delay, to restrain, to sit still while others twitch. Machiavelli would call it prudence. We call it patience. Patience is the quietest form of dominance. When you're patient, other people reveal themselves. When you wait, they rush. When you stay calm, they overextend. When you withdraw, they chase. When you stay silent, they confess. The wealthy don't just buy assets, they buy time, space, and silence, insulation from urgency. Urgency is the prison of the weak. Patience is the weapon of the strong. Once you master it, opportunity stops feeling like luck and starts feeling like gravity. You don't chase the next move. You position yourself so that the next move has no choice but to come to you. There is an even sharper edge to this weapon, one most people will never touch because it requires a level of coldness they can't stomach: money as emotional leverage. Machiavelli understood that men are driven by their passions far more than by logic, and the modern elite exploit this perfectly. They don't bark orders, they design conditions. They don't shout commands, they shape incentives. They don't force decisions, they structure emotional pressure. When your money controls access, opportunity, attention, or stability, you don't need to tell people what to do. They feel what will happen if they don't comply. Fear of losing your approval, desire to gain your favor, anxiety about being excluded from your world. Those emotions do the work for you. That is control without confrontation. But you cannot use money this way if you're still chasing validation like everyone else. The man who needs to be admired, understood, or praised is easy to steer. Compliment him and he melts. Ignore him and he spirals. Criticize him and he dances to prove himself. To weaponize money, you must detach from all of that. You must become the one person in the room who doesn't need applause, who doesn't flinch at misunderstanding, who doesn't crumble when no one sees his effort. When you no longer need to look powerful, you become powerful. When you no longer need recognition, your money stops screaming for attention and starts working in silence. And in silence, leverage multiplies. There comes a point in this evolution where the game itself changes shape in your eyes. The world stops looking like a chaotic battlefield and starts looking like a map of incentives, weaknesses, dependencies, and emotional pressure points, and money becomes the ink you redraw it with. Machiavelli understood that true power is not in the sword you swing today, but in the conditions you set that keep working tomorrow. And that is exactly what weaponized money does at its highest levels. You stop thinking, how do I win this moment? And start asking, what system can I build so that I keep winning even when I'm not here? You use money to create structures that run without you, machines where people move, buy, build, and depend on your decisions long after you've left the room. Your influence becomes ambient, baked into contracts, platforms, habits, and expectations. People who have never met you still live inside the rules your money wrote. That is inevitability. When others cannot escape the consequences of your movement, even if they don't know you made it. And with that inevitability comes the final outer shift, the disappearance of your visible self. The most dangerous players in any age are not the ones on magazine covers. They are the shadows behind them. When people can't see you, they can't target you. When they can't read you, they can't predict you. When they can't predict you, they can't defend against you. Your name fades while your structures remain. Your face is forgettable while your influence is permanent. That is Machiavellian power in the age of money. Not to be admired on the surface, but to be unavoidable underneath it. Here is the final truth you've been circling from the beginning. Weaponizing money is not about dominating others first. It is about dominating yourself. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who cannot rule his own impulses will eventually be ruled by those he governs. And the same is true of you. You cannot control the flow of money if you cannot control the urges that sabotage you. You cannot control people if you cannot control your reactions to them. You cannot bend narrative if you cannot silence the part of you that needs to be liked, understood, and approved. The real battlefield was never the market, the bank, the economy. It was your mind. Discipline, detachment, clarity, silence, patience, strategic coldness. These are not personality traits. They are weapons, sharper than any blade you could buy. Once you master them, money stops feeling chaotic. It becomes predictable, obedient, almost boring because you are no longer whipped around by every spike and dip, every opportunity and setback. The illusions you were fed begin to crack. You see that money doesn't buy happiness. It buys leverage. It doesn't measure your worth. It exposes your discipline. It doesn't give you status. It buys you silence, the ability to move through life without begging, explaining, or justifying yourself. Most people will still use money to escape reality. They will drown discomfort in purchases, numb anxiety with lifestyle, hide from their own reflection behind new upgrades. Predators use money to shape reality. They buy time to think, distance to see clearly, leverage to move pieces others don't even know exist. The prey fears losing money. The predator fears losing clarity, because he knows clarity is what turns every dollar into a weapon. That is why, in the end, the predator wins not necessarily because he is smarter, but because he is playing a different game. While the herd clings to survival, he is focused on control. Control of his time, his environment, his emotions, his narrative, his identity. And once those are under his command, money is just a force he directs, a shadow he casts, a silent soldier he sends into battles he never has to personally fight. So the question for you is no longer, how do I make more money? The question is, am I becoming the kind of mind that money obeys? Because money follows power, power follows discipline, discipline follows clarity, and clarity follows detachment. Your transformation begins the moment you stop thinking like prey, reactive, emotional, scared, and start thinking like the strategist Machiavelli would have respected, calm, calculated, patient, inevitable. Your transformation begins when you stop chasing money and start constructing the mind, the habits, the structures that pull money, people, and opportunity into your orbit. Your transformation begins when you stop playing inside someone else's game and start designing your own. From that point on, the world will never look the same. You will see leverage where others see cost, systems where others see obstacles, patterns where others see chaos. And you will start to see yourself not as a victim of financial forces, but as an architect of your own reality. This is not just about wealth, this is about sovereignty. A life where nothing external owns you. A life where money is your silent servant. A life where power is not an accident, but a choice you make every day in how you think, act, and deploy your resources. This is how you weaponize money. This is Machiavelli's power secret, translated into the language of your age. This is the path the herd will never walk, and the predators will never advertise. Welcome to the other side.